Hello, folks. I'm Nick Bernardo, your host of MyGovWatch Live, the B2G Roundtable. If you're east of the Rocky Mountains here in the U.S., good afternoon. Good morning to those out west, and hello to anyone joining us from the far corners of the earth or watching online in the future. Today's Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. This series is brought to you by MyGovWatch. With a curated white glove approach, MyGovWatch delivers leads in more than 200 industries at double the rate of free government tools and at a fraction of the cost of legacy websites. Big government contracts do not start with a solicitation, but all roads lead to one, and your budget for hearing about RFPs does not have to be thousands of dollars per year. Start your 14-day trial today. Well, folks, here we are on the doorstep of summer. Another summer is upon us, and if you've been with us before on MyGovWatch Live, you know that I try to do backgrounds that are topical. So this is an oldie but goodie as we enter the summer season. My family loves the beach town of Stone Harbor, New Jersey, which is just north of the southern tip of New Jersey, Cape May, so South Jersey. And so as we go through the session today, I'm going to be looking for a lot of people to raise their hand and ask questions about government contracting and how to win more of them. But I may ask you, what are your summer plans? And hopefully you'll have some you can share with us. So let's just see how many we have on here. And it looks like we have a full crowd. And I already see names of people that I spoke with in the last few days. So one thing that I do as a part of this series is I will make just a handful of calls to people that might have a sign-up form that looks interesting or particularly interesting. And just try to see if people are going to jump on and ask questions or engage in a specific subject matter. If you're new to MyGovWatch Live, this session can last anywhere from an hour to about 90 minutes. It's totally casual, laid back. If you come on, by the way, you could start raising your hands now because I'm going to be looking for people to participate momentarily. So, if you come on, what we've been doing recently is leading you in as a panelist, so it feels more like a group discussion on whatever topic people are bringing up. And so let me just take a look here. Let's just see if a few of the people that I know I spoke with are with us. Carl, I see you are on with us, and I know we spoke. Carl, I'm wondering if you're listening, could you raise your hand if I could bring you on and talk a little bit about what we spoke about, I believe, last week. So, Carl, I'm looking for your hand. Let's see if Simon's here. No Simon yet. I see Ray. Ray, feel free to raise your hand. I know we spoke yesterday. It looks like we do have a hand. Let's see who we have. There we go. There's Ray. Let's bring Ray on. So also spoke with Nikki and Simon and Carl. So if at any point, folks, you want to raise your hand, by the way, not just limited to those people, anyone who would like to come on and talk a little bit about what you're trying to achieve in government contracting, just raise your hand and we'll bring you on. And as a reminder, anyone who has not used our site before at MyGovWatch, who asks a question in this session, qualifies for an extended 1-month trial on the website just for participating in the webinar. So Ray, we do need your audio. We don't need your video, but if you come off mute, let's talk.
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome to MyGovWatch Live. Ray, what do you do and where are you joining us from?
So I am currently in Orlando at a conference, but I live in El Paso, Texas. I work for a company called ELB Learning, and I've been here about 5 months. I am the new VP of Federal Solutions. And the reason why I came over to such a great organization is we're just launching our federal initiative. Normally, ELB Learning across the board is really your one-stop shop for training, learning development, staff augmentation, very heavy into the private sector with, some amazing clients in the Fortune 500, but we hadn't tapped into the federal world too much. I was a previous contracting officer and DoD, Army, Air Force Security Forces, and kind of working through different initiatives, not really in the training outside tactical. And when I came to ELB, it was to really push us forward into that world, which has been unique. So what's funny is, though, I came in thinking just federal, and it quickly turned into more local and state work. And that's when I actually started looking at sites like MyGovWatch and a couple others, because it's very different. And something we talked about yesterday that I thought was important, that I wanted to kind of just pick your brain on, a couple others, is I'm new to the MyGovWatch world, but I love everything I get every morning for opportunities, is staying ahead of the curve when you're talking to those in charge of the contracts, right? Because a lot of times in the federal world in particular, and just picking people's brains on the state and local work and other agencies, is by the time the RFP hits, it's a little too late if they don't know who you are through your capabilities statements, past performance and everything. So I was just interested in kind of just seeing what these meetings were about and everyone's feedback on that aspect. As as I start pitching RFPs with a great team, how do we position ourselves better, especially as a big company like ourselves, who need to leverage partnerships of the smaller companies out there, that already have their foot in the door. And I would like it to be, a one-stop shop, not just for the clients, but most importantly, the partners out there that think they can benefit from our resources, our capabilities, but really help us kind of launch our way into the state work that we have with a lot of our subscriptions and stuff.
Yeah, you say a mouthful, Ray, and it's very interesting to me that you said you're a former contracting officer. Is that right?
Yes, but not as
Okay.
I was an untrained one, as they threw me in there in the last part of the deployment. I got to learn a lot by brute force and ignorance, and it was awesome. But yes, in the Army.
So, and here's a question for you, Ray, as we start sort of this conversation. And by the way, anybody who wants to jump in on this conversation, just raise your hand and we'll bring you in. What are you already seeing as somebody who now has been on both sides, contracting officer side, procurement side, and now on the private side? What are some things that you have been seeing that either you knew going in would be the case, or that sort of surprised you, right, on this side of the coin compared to the other side of the coin? What's been new or interesting to you about that?
So I think what's new that I had a general idea of when I was on the green suitor side and the government side, but not as surprising, but just, I guess, more encouraging for the companies, is how much capacity and capabilities out there that I didn't know about in the government roles, because we are the ones that used to sit on the other side, see the RFPs come in. But as I maneuver with a lot of smaller companies that are trying to get into the world, whether through our partnerships or just consulting, what's awesome is that we don't need to be worried or scared about the RFPs that we're seeing. I think a lot of times some of my partners have just said, no, we can't do that because that seems very intricate. And it really comes down to, can you perform? And I want to encourage everyone to understand that as long as you can perform and get, your business model in order so that you can be audited accordingly to these RFPs, there's so many great companies out there that can execute these RFPs, and you don't need to be one of the bigger ones. So I encourage them to answer the RFPs and ask a lot of questions of the government and the procurement officials. Don't be scared to talk to them and ask the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like your experience, and obviously it sounds like it's disproportionately federal. What sorts of observations have you been having as you're looking at state and local contracts through our site? What observations are you having about how it may be different, right? Or what questions do you have about how it may be different?
I guess my questions for the how it may be different is, how do we posture ourselves better? In the federal world, I can conduct what we call capability briefings and shoot out our capability statement ahead of time, just to talk to the government and the officials on the other end of who we are. Because I think you got to build that relationship before you're answering the RFPs. And I was wondering if it is similar, as I see these RFPs coming up, to kind of answer even after maybe that RFP date passed. I thought it was a good opportunity. We just didn't catch. But can I set up meetings similar to that, just so that we can talk about what ELB learning does?
Yeah, absolutely. So just a couple of things to consider. And for anyone who's new to federal contracting, this idea of a capability statement, that's a term of art in federal contracting. It's typically a 1 or 2 page document that explains specifically what you can do. It's almost like a corporate resume. So what Ray's really alluding to is, like, how does he mimic some of what he knows works in federal contracting? How does he mimic that at the state and local level? A couple of things to consider, Ray. One, if I were you, I would be using our site to look at what are some of the things that state and local buyers, anything beyond federal, and we have 21 different government buyer types. Federal is only one of them. Look at the other 20 buyer types on our site and ask yourself, what are they buying today that could be a tell that they need your solution next quarter, next year, or beyond? Because I think if you were to look at our site and look at, so are there some things in your world that if they're buying it today, they might need what you're offering next year.
Okay, no, that makes sense, and very similar to how we approach our pipeline build in the federal aspect is, yes, look ahead and see what we're going to do.
Well, I'll give you an example, and I'm just wondering if there's anything like that. So if you are selling website design services, for example, or printing services for sales and marketing or for tourism, let's just say, if you see an RFP for a county or a state that says rebranding initiative, they're not buying what you're selling today. They're not buying, signage or a website, but because they're buying a rebranding initiative, they're probably going to need you later. Is there any parallel like that in your business where if they're buying one thing or if they're looking at one thing, they're probably going to need you down the road?
Yes, 100%. And I mean, so on the services side, for sure, when it's looking for, managerial training and then staff augmentation into some of these positions, but a lot of it comes into just their, we provide product as well, right? So micro builder, Lectora, all of that is really supposed to be your one-stop shop so that you're not doing PowerPoints every day, to make micro courses and make it a lot easier for your subordinate leaders to be providing the training. So when I see something service-based, I think I see a lot of opportunity on the actual product for the future because it's a 1-2 punch. If I give a course today in person, how am I leveraging my subordinate leaders on the train the trainer to be able to adjust said courses when the dynamics of whatever we are doing changes, right? Red Cross is a prime example that I go through. So things like that, I think, because we do have 6 to 7 services and products to be able to provide that. That makes plenty of sense as I look at service-based RFPs. Hey, what else do they need to kind of finish that product and make sure the subordinate leaders can adjust training as needed?
Yeah, absolutely. And so just kind of bringing it full circle, what I would specifically recommend, and this is for anyone, right? If you see, or if you're able to use a site like ours to identify like what is the government buying that is similar to what you sell or that's upstream from what you sell, use open solicitations to submit questions during the bid process that may give you important marketing information during an active bid process. So using that branding example, if I was selling printing or web design services and I saw a branding RFP on our site, I would submit a formal question during the bid process that says, hey, you're looking for a rebranding of your tourism board. What are your plans for redesigning the website? Or can you please quantify your printing needs, right? Because although they're not buying it today, they have to answer that question during the bid process, or oftentimes they will answer that question. So I would encourage you to think like that. Don't just look on our site for what you precisely sell. Look for upstream purchases from what you sell, things that they're buying as a precursor to buying what you sell, or things that are related to what you sell. Use those bid processes to identify who the decision makers are during the bidding process and also through the open records law. Ray, are you familiar with FOIA or open records laws as it relates to contracting and some of the information that you can get from those?
I am not.
Okay, so it's a lot harder federally because a lot of it, the federal government is just very opaque. It's not very transparent, and that cuts across. I've seen that for almost 20 years across different political administrations. But at the state and local level, and people do this through our site, you can order what's called Open Recs Access, which is an add-on product where we will fulfill an open records request. And here's what we're able to get through open records: a copy of a signed contract, a copy of the winning proposal that shows exactly what the winning vendor said in their offer. But in your case, particularly, lists of bidders and evaluation criteria where they describe why they like different bidders and why maybe they didn't like other bidders. So even pricing of all of your competitors, you can get that through an open records request. You can do it yourself, but the reason why people use our site is that they're able to remain anonymous, because oftentimes the government folks do not want to fulfill those requests. So for a nominal upcharge, people have us do it so that they are anonymous in respect of that request. And I can't encourage people enough to use that process to learn things about their competition in government contracting. And I wonder what your thoughts are about that.
No, I think that's a good idea and very unique. Like you said, not common in the federal. So I would like to kind of explore that with what we have and looking into the state, because we do have a lot of state clients, but again, that's just more product based, right?
Sure. And we're going to bring in Jared. Jared wants to add to the conversation. And before we bring Jared on, Jared, I want to ask you this question, Ray. What are your summer plans? Because I will tell you that after this call, after this session, my family and I will be taking a little bit of a mini tour over the northern part of the country, right around Minnesota and Wisconsin. Any fun summer plans coming up, Ray?
Summer is more dedicated to the business, but once we hit the fall, we get to go to Disney World and take all 6 kids. So daddy's got to save up and hustle over the summer so we can make sure we take care of that. So,
Well, having taken 3 kids to Disney World, I fully appreciate why you're focused on the business. So, Ray, stay with us. Let's bring Jared on. Jared, we need your audio. Can you hear us? We just need your audio, Jared.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
No worries, Jared. Welcome to MyGovWatch Live. What do you do and where are you joining us from?
Originally from Wisconsin, so you said Wisconsin and Minnesota. I'm curious where you're going up there, but now I'm in Clearwater, Florida, the Director of Operations for Quality Lockout LLC. We do OSHA compliance for lockout tagout in confined spaces.
Okay, so can you elaborate on that just a bit? I heard OSHA, I heard lockout, but just like at an 8th grade level, what do you do?
Sure. So essentially what we do as a company is we're more or less the middleman in between manufacturers realistically any facility that has a maintenance department. The OSHA, law states that you have to have a lockout tagout safety program. So basically it's a safety program for servicing and maintenance where you literally have to de-energize all of the electrical or all the energy sources by utilizing like physical locks so nobody can turn it on. And what comes with that is trainings and devices and all that stuff. So basically we'll go into facilities and write safety procedures and then implement the energy control programs to make sure that our clients are in compliance.
So you're minimizing risk.
Yeah, we're going into facilities that that don't have enough resources to maintain these specific OSHA standards.
Sure. Okay. And what are your current goals in GovCon, and what are some of the roadblocks you're having, or what are you trying to do that you feel that you can't quite do in GovCon?
So I've had some in the past. I've basically just been probably like what I'm starting to understand is like low level searching, I guess, if that makes sense. Like I'm just going to like SAM.gov or I think it was FedBiz jobs or something like that before. And, I just look for solicitations, anything to do with, quick search for what I do, which is lockout, tagout, or confined spaces. And then, I'll see, a bid that'll pop up here and there, but sometimes I'm too short, it happened too quick and, the bid's gone and stuff like that. So what I'm trying to gain is just kind of having, I guess there's an opening to just having more of this information that seems like it's out there through other websites and portals and stuff like that where I didn't know existed. I just thought, that everything just has to go through those venues like the SAM.gov and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to, I guess, get more of an insider track. What you just said about the open records request, I mean, that's going to be awesome for what I do. I've never took advantage of that. So I'm just looking to learn a little bit more strategy.
Yeah, it's a big deal, the open records. And someone typed a question. I just want to field it because we're on that topic now. Michael asks, is the information request limited only to government contracts, or do nonprofits or private businesses also required to provide this material transparency? So Michael, assuming you're asking about FOIA, unfortunately, private entities are not required. So this is only if you're subject to, if you are receiving government funds, would generally be what triggers the transparency laws at the state and federal level. So Jared, let me ask you, and I apologize for not knowing this, are you using our site today?
No.
Okay, all right. So let me just and I try not to make these sessions too promotional, But here's the kind of person who doesn't need a site like ours. I'll give you both answers.
Okay.
Here's the kind of person who doesn't need a site like, and then here's the kind of person who does need a site like ours. If you're only interested in federal contracts and you don't mind spending 15 minutes on SAM.gov every morning looking for federal leads only, then you may not be someone who needs a tool like MyGovWatch. Sites like ours, what we're doing is we're aggregating data from thousands of sources. And instead of you having to search thousands of sources, or let's just say you're a contractor in one state. Let's say you're a building contractor in one state. Even in one state like New Jersey, you might need to visit 100 different websites just to know, is the government publishing anything about construction in maybe northern New Jersey? And you might have to do that to 100 different sites to know what's happening. Sites like ours are consolidating all that data and then pushing you an email and using algorithms in different ways to make sure that the right leads show up in your daily email and on the site for you. So that's like the fundamental value proposition for why companies would use a site like ours. Or, in the other example, if you only care about, let's say, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and you only want state government, you probably don't need us, as another example. So follow-up questions about that or about any of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've hit something. One of the avenues I want to go forward with is, essentially municipalities across the United States is what you're talking about, right? I mean, more or less.
Yes. So there are 23,000 census places in this country, as an example. Yeah,
so that's perfect. I mean, that's literally like I've kind of did my own little thing, but I've got burnt like the last 2 weeks. I've missed an RFP because I was like using like ChatGPT and stuff like that to try to do searches like that. And yesterday I found one that it was already a week old, and I know I was doing the same searches last week. You know what I mean? So I feel like there's got to be a better option for me to try to get access to these across the country municipalities, just besides the federal jobs.
And the other thing with federal is our system is using a proprietary algorithm to look at some of the content from SAM.gov. So it's not just the time savings, so you don't have to go to the site every day. We are doing some things with algorithms and unique things that are proprietary with the logic to make sure certain things appear in your feed. So again, we're not trying to be too promotional. It came up organically. I would encourage that, and because you're participating in this session, there's a 2-week free trial advertised on the site. We bumped that out to a month if you participate in this session and then go sign up this week.
Okay. How will I just put my information in and it should be recognized?
Yeah, there's a daily report. You'll enter into a 2-week trial, but I'll see your name on a report and we'll deal with that offline.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. Well, thank you. Yeah. This seems beneficial. Like, I mean, obviously I just sent, my CEO sent me a link to this yesterday and he's like, hey, this might be of interest. So this is very brand new to me, but the concept of it and the idea behind it, it seems like it's something definitely that could be another feather in my cap to try to be successful in this field.
Yeah, and I just want to make this point, and this is not about our site, but this is about RFPs in general. There are a lot of people out there in the economy who may not know or may not be able to easily answer how often does the government buy what I sell? And only by using an aggregation tool, whether it be ours or another, would you begin to be able to answer that. And because we're a little bit unique that we offer an extended free trial, in the course of a month, you can see what happens in a month, and then you can look back at the last year and say how many things that look like X will come up next year based on how many times it came up in the last year. So, Jared, why don't you stay with us? Julian, we're going to come to you in a moment, but I'm going to bring Carl on, and I think Carl's going to have some interesting questions, and then Ashish, we will bring you on as well. So let me try to bring Carl on, and Carl, hopefully you haven't gone off to get a sandwich. Let's just see. And Jared, while we're waiting, any fun plans this summer?
Not really. I'm still think I'm on vacation. I moved to Clearwater, Florida, so I still just I still just like go around my house and think I'm, you know, coming from Wisconsin. It's been 4 years and it's pretty bad. I have to snap out of it at some point, but I'm pretty
Well,
happy.
you must be tired.
What's that?
You must be tired of seeing. You must be tired of seeing Phillies red in Clearwater, Florida.
Oh, you got the Phillies, you got the Yankees, you got the Blue Jays. They're all around, and now the Tampa Rays are playing at the Yankee Stadium because the dome blew off during the Hurricanes last year. But yeah, big baseball team for sure. Yeah.
Well, I've had a lot of fun in Clearwater at spring training over the years. And to answer you mentioned earlier about the trip I'm planning, we'll start in North Dakota. We're going to see the Theodore Roosevelt National Park, drive across, go through northern Minnesota, see some of the lakes. And then I understand that we have a stop in the Dells, whatever that is.
Oh, yeah, the Wisconsin Dells. You're like, hey, take this down. This is like a not in the tour guide. It's one of the best. Yeah, it's one of the best supper clubs in the United States. And it's called Ishwala. It's like ISH, something like ISHWALA. You got to go there. It is phenomenal. You won't be mad.
Well, I appreciate that. My wife and I are a little bit, let's just say food is important on the list. So I will be looking at, this is being recorded, so we'll be able to, go back to the recording. I sort of appreciate that. Jared, stay with us. Carl's going to join us now. Carl, we need your audio, and Ray or Jared, feel free to jump in at any time, and participate in the conversation. And folks, we love to have both your audio and video. If you're not in a position and you only need to give audio, or you can only give audio, that's fine too. So Carl, welcome to MyGovWatch Live. What do you do, and where are you joining us from?
Yeah, hopefully you can hear me. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I am joining from Florida, St. Augustine, Florida. So what I do is, I run a call center, very large remote call center. We do government contracting, currently W-2. Been doing it for a while. I've actually been in government contracting since I left the Navy in 2009. I've worked specifically on federal contracts, except for a brief stint in the oil industry. But the reason I was interested in this meeting here today is because I do have some desire and then possible opportunity to kind of branch out on my own with the call center. I have a website. So I'm kind of working backwards, have a website, going to be building out a business around that. And I'm looking for potential government contracts. There's opportunity, but either directly with the government or as part of a prime. Where I lack is the past performance, except for my own performance. So I'm just trying to kind of see what's, what kind of like what am I getting into, right? So what is this going to look like as a contractor? I have experience on the RFP side, limited experience. Obviously, I've been with large contracts and small contracts, several actually over the years, and they're all kind of different, But what I'm looking for specifically is my niche would be call center support. BPO, back office, things of that nature. So just kind of here to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember we talked briefly a few weeks ago. So if I were working for a company that had government business already, and I take it that you do, specifically federal contracting, do you have your disabled vet certification yet for the business, or is that ongoing?
No, that's ongoing. Right now, I have a website that's being built. It is public, but it's still being built. And then I'll be getting over the next couple of months. I'll be getting with a CPA and a lawyer, and just kind of building out. Really, just trying to decide if it's going to be, how it's going to be structured, LLC or corporation. And then I'll get with the state, and I'll get all those certifications. But I do qualify as a service disabled minority veteran. So I got a couple of check marks there that I would use if I'm looking for a set aside, or if I'm looking to hitch on to a prime that's looking to bring on, because that's the trend. At least in my industry, the trend is for a prime to bring on a pretty high percentage of small business to include on those contracts. So I wouldn't be directly with the government, but I'd be on a government contract, and I could kind of backdoor the system, get some past performance under my belt, and then maybe a couple years from now, apply directly as a prime. So that's kind of like the long-term goal, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, and for those who are not aware, what Carl's referring to is using subcontracting as a way of accessing federal contracting dollars. So you get all of or most of the dollars of the federal contracts. You're just working for a prime contractor, so you don't really have to do a lot of the marketing. You're just marketing to your prime contractor. They may be taking a little piece of your revenue for managing you, but it's a very common way that small businesses can get some experience in federal contracting and create capital P, past performance, which is an important term of art with federal contracts. And it sounds like Carl may be on his way to doing that. Carl, have you heard of something called the Mentor-Protégé Program?
I have actually. One of my subcontractors under my program is on the Mentor-Protégé Program, ironically.
And are you familiar with all of the benefits of that program to not only the protege, but also to the mentor?
No, I'm actually not. I was just first introduced to them in 2023, and that's when I first even heard the term. So I'm total novice when it comes to that.
Well, yeah, I would just say this, that's also a federal term of art in a program where the mentor agrees to provide assistance, and that can be not only financial assistance, it could be managerial consulting and lots of different types of resources to a small business. And here's the real kicker, and here's the benefit to the mentor. The mentor can own part of the protege, and the mentor can disproportionately, and I think when I say that, I mean over 50%, disproportionately participate in contracts set aside for the designation of the protege. And I know that's a mouthful, but what I mean by that is, and this applies to, hub-owned, woman-owned, disadvantaged, and certainly disabled vet. So let's just say there's a service-disabled veteran-owned set aside for service X. If you have a mentor, and whether or not they own part of you or not, that's irrelevant. The mentor, you can use the mentor's past performance in an offer for a contract set aside for disabled veterans. And they can do, at least last time I looked at it, up to 60% of the work. So they get to participate as if they were a small disabled veteran-owned business by virtue of the fact that they're helping you as a mentor. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
okay.
No, that's good. I didn't know that. Thank you. Yeah,
that's a big benefit. And what we find is that, in your company today, there might only be one or two people even aware of that. They might be generally aware of the program, but they may not be aware of all the benefits of that program. So have you heard of a concept called affiliation in federal contracting?
No.
Okay. So that's sort of like the other side of the it's sort of the catch-22. And this is something you want to start reading about. Google federal contracting small business affiliation. And what you're going to read about is a concept in which if you are, I'm trying to get my hands right, if this is your mentor or your prime contractor and you're a sub or a protege, you have to be careful that the mentor doesn't have too much control of your business. Because there are lots of mechanisms where if somebody challenged an award to you and said, hey, Carl's company is being mentored or is a prime contractor, has a prime sub relationship with XYZ, but Carl's not really a small business because he's really just an extension of that bigger company. That's a very common way that people can get in trouble with federal contracting if they allow a relationship that there's too many blurred lines on who's controlling the small business. So particularly with your business plan, I would recommend some legal counsel around that if you go down that road with a partner. Like, for example, in one example, if you get 70% of your revenue from a large business, you're automatically affiliated with them and you're not considered a small business. And that's just one of like 15 different ways you can be affiliated. So I would recommend that you look into that topic as well. Follow-up questions, by the way, I have an affinity for veterans and disabled veterans. I used to run a charity for disabled veterans for 7 years where we help pay their bills. My father's a disabled veteran, so if you want to have some offline conversations, I'm happy to do that with you gratis and just sort of help you out.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I coattail you with that? Or?
Yeah. Go ahead,
So hypothetically, I have a minority equity in company A. And then I start company B as a service disabled veteran. Does that automatically throw me in that affiliation category, or does the
No, it does not. It does not. It does not. It depends on, is this a hypothetical or is this a real situation in your case?
This is all hypothetical, potentially going to be a real situation.
Yeah, it has to do with whether or not the business purporting to be a small or disabled vet or hub zone or woman-owned or disadvantaged business has to do with whether or not they have something called unconditional control of that business. So once you start having a partner, whether it be another business or a client, that is able to block you from doing things that looks like you don't have unconditional control of your business, it starts to fall apart and the government starts to look at you as a part of that other company. So you'd have to have a whole lot of other pieces of information for me to be able to comment on it.
Sure.
But hypothetically, there are ways around it. You have to know what the landmines are.
And that 70% you were referring to earlier, is there a monetary, assignment to that where, okay, let's say I made 70 grand, is there, before it's considered you're not I forget what the term you used was, but affiliated. Like let's just say you were a startup and you were getting 100% of your revenue from one large company. Well, they might give you 2 years to change that, right? But let's just say you've been in business for 10 years, but it just so happens that 71% of your revenue is from one customer, right? They would consider you an affiliate of that company. Okay.
And that's just one example. That's just one way you can be affiliated with a large business.
I gotcha. And so it's not really monetary. It's not the amount, it's the percentage of revenue.
It's the percentage of revenue, yes. Okay. Percentage of total sales.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to bring in Julian, and Jared and Carl, feel free to jump in as we sort of go through this. And while we're waiting for Julian, let's just see here. Promote Julian. Julian, let's just see if you can join in here. Here comes Julian.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Welcome, Julian, to MyGovWatch Live. What do you do and where are you joining us from?
Thank you. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, and we're a low voltage company. We specialized into data network wiring, and gradually we expanded to CCTV cameras systems. Particularly, we're looking to expand installing access cameras and other equipment like door access and other sensors they provide by equipment. But we also install audio and video equipment and pretty much everything related to low voltage. We're the guys with the hands-on wires. We're not doing too much IT stuff. So mostly we work with the IT managed services that kind of third party hire us to wire and prepare the field before they program all and stage all the equipment. But particularly, we're looking into this field for security system cameras for the government facilities.
Okay. And what are the obstacles? Like what would be preventing you from pursuing contracts?
Well, yeah, we launched in 2020, and since then we've been pretty much learning in the residential field. And at this moment, we kind of, gradually gained this volume that we can actually handle government jobs. And I have not know anything about it, but I started to tap into it and started to learn. Kind of learned that, registering on SAM.gov will be a potential start. And I looked up the requirements. We got an office, so we have already like a residence into commercial space. That was one of the requirements. And now we just trying to get some certificates, but I want to make sure I'm aware of all the certificates that are necessary to bid in this field for government jobs, projects, potentially to get qualify to, be able to take advantage of the grants that are allocated for the projects.
Yeah, so the good news is that there are a ton of contracts at the federal, state, and local level related to what you do. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's number one, is that like the pool of opportunity for you is massive. There's so much emphasis on IT and security and anything around what you do. It's just a massive market. Think of it this way: there's federal contracts, and then there's everything else. Are you only interested in federal contracts, or are you also interested in state and local contracts?
We take local contracts. Yeah, we're not picky. We do just anything. we already work with so many like general contracts and IT managed services, like I mentioned, that we are in good relationships. Like every other store comes up in the local malls that the owner hasn't already picked a vendor for low voltage, then our partner general contractor will refer us and we'll get it going. But it's been rather very difficult to outsource these projects because most of the time the owners pick directly a low voltage vendor instead of having that been taken care of by the general contractor.
You're saying that the end client is picking the low voltage contractor, not the prime contractor.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, based on what I'm hearing, it sounds like you've been in business 5 years.
Yep.
It sounds like you have an office, you have employees, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You have probably some pretty sizable customers, right?
Yeah. I mean, we do have it's not a very strong revenue in terms of, like clean revenue, but, like generally speaking, we do have like equipment, services provided cash flow of about $400,000 a year. So we're somewhat a small business.
So I'm recommending two things. Number one, there's nothing preventing you today from pursuing state and local contracts. Nothing. There is no certification that you necessarily need that would prevent you from pursuing those contracts. There will be a ton of prime contracts for what you do, and I think there's also going to be a lot of subcontracts for what you do. And so there's nothing that you necessarily need that's special for that. For federal contracts, because it's technology, there are federal terms of art around data security and around your technology interacting with federal technology. I'm not an expert in those, but they exist. It is a much higher barrier to access federal contracts because you first need to qualify for the different federal security protocols in order to participate as a technology vendor to the federal government. So I would recommend focusing on state and local contracts and learning a little bit here and there about the federal data security parameters and protocols, again, of which I'm not an expert, but they are out there. And I would think that with very little research, you could identify those. There are consultants out there who will help you with those, with federal contracts. And I probably know people who can help you find a vendor if you want some help with that. But there's nothing stopping you from bidding on state and local contracts today.
Well, I'm aware that there is not much requirements for the local contracts, but we finding ourselves, especially at this time, into very low volume of work. We are subscribed to like Blue Book and Building Connected, but yet we are not gaining too much grip on like. I just have hard time finding, a field to bid. I don't see the projects that are, low voltage designated. Most of them are done by electricians. So we are kind of left out, and I don't see any platform. That's why I'm looking into that, because since everybody says, the government has a bigger volume of this kind of projects, that's why I'm looking into it. I just have a hard time outsourcing projects. That's my problem at this moment in particular.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe you're not getting a lot of attention from the website providers that you have that are sending you leads. And I'll just tell you that a big part of what we do at MyGovWatch is interacting with users to make sure that the site is sending you better leads and more leads that are relevant to what you're looking for. Some of our competitors, and I'm not naming names, will just give you a login, ask for all the money up front, and then say, good luck. If you find something great, if you don't find anything, that's not our problem. We take a different approach. We are very much engaged with our users to help them find what they need. So, feel free to take that for what it's worth if you want to give our site a try, but I could certainly make myself available to help you with that offline.
Yeah, for sure. I don't mind. I pay much more for the Blue Book, and in that case, they just give us the subscription, and they're like, we do have a volume, but it's just the general contractors looking for electrician, HVAC, and plumbers, and we, every time like I bring that up to their attention, they say, the owner is actually making that call, so we can't help you.
Yeah, we should have an offline conversation, Julian, where we look at some leads together on our site. So I would encourage you to contact me after this event, and I'll put my email address in the chat. We're going to bring Rajesh on. Julian, you can stay with us, and you can continue to ask questions. But let's bring Rajesh on.
Absolutely, thank you.
And do you have any plans coming up for the summer, Julian?
Oh, that question was to me?
Yes, I'm wondering, do you have anything fun planned for the summer?
Oh, not much. I'm just looking for the opportunity to do more work. I'm not there yet. Like I can't afford big vacations yet. I mean, I did take my vacation in winter, but that's about it.
Well, you're staying busy, and it's good to stay busy. I personally haven't had a real vacation in years. I'm one of these people who goes on vacation, and I don't mind talking to the office. I don't mind, working on a vacation because I love what I do. But it's a little different from like a real vacation where you just turn everything off. But I think I would go a little bit crazy in that case. But Rajesh, thank you for joining MyGovWatch Live. Can you hear us? We just need your audio.
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you. Thanks for
welcome to MyGovWatch Live. What do you do and where are you joining us from?
Yeah, I'm joining from Tampa, Florida, and I'm kind of like a newbie to this entire process. So I currently work with CMS healthcare processes, and we manage. I'm a director in the organization where we manage more than 5 million members, Affordable Care Act members, and then we process close to $20 billion. I'm just trying to understand, like I wanted to start something on my own. So trying to understand like where do I start, what exactly is needed to do something on my own. And that's why like I'm just looking into this My Government Watch. So based on your experience and background, if you can suggest me or guide me, that's going to be really helpful.
Yeah, and so are you working for an employer now, or do you have a business yet?
Both. I work for a employer, and then I have a LLC where I wanted to get started with some small businesses. I'm not looking for anything big, but at least like something that I can work on the side or like kind of like do the employment on my own.
Okay. And what would be some of the kinds of things that you would do on your own?
Yeah, I'm more into the information technology side and on the artificial intelligence side. I can just turn on my video. So you can see me. Okay, hi. Now I'm more onto the artificial intelligence side and information technology side, where I build apps, websites, and support the call center for the AI call centers. Takes care of building portals for them, like where people log in, do the credentials and all of that. And my entire 2 decades of career has been mostly with the healthcare and interacting with CMS for data record processing and all of that. And on the side, like I also have an AI company where we just built a product for call center operations, where when somebody calls, the AI is going to respond outgoing calls, text messages, web chatting, and all that. So I'm just trying to get like where kind of like my expertise fits into, and then trying to get some contracts either locally or at the state level or something like that.
Well, you are, and I've said this before, and I say it all the time on these sessions, the government cannot find all of the technical resources it needs to do what it needs to do.
Correct.
Okay. So, and we've seen this, we've done surveys in the past, and they're always mentioning technology. They just don't have enough resources for it. But I would encourage you to do this. So you said you're in Tampa, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. How far are you willing to drive from Tampa to do business with a government agency?
I mean, I can drive. That's not an issue. Yeah, like maybe 2 hours, 3 hours.
Okay, I would draw a circle or a semicircle because you're along the coast from Tampa, and just draw a circle. And I would do an old-fashioned campaign of trying to learn who is the director of technology with different municipalities, smaller towns, right? Where the person might be the mayor and might also be responsible for technology initiatives, right? Because, and what I'm telling you is unique to you. I would say something different to a more established company. I would try to identify who those decision makers are about technology and just ask them, what are their needs? What are they trying to do with technology that they can't do? Because at the local level and the state level, there's something called a purchasing threshold, where if the cost of the procurement or what they want to buy is above a certain level, they have to put it out for bid.
Okay.
If it's below that level, they do not have to put it out for bid.
Okay.
And so I would look at the counties surrounding Tampa. I would look at a lot of the smaller or medium-sized towns around Tampa and identify what is the threshold, what is the dollar amount that requires them to publicly list the bid. And I would try to propose things on purpose that are below the threshold, just to get a reference or two. So you're probably not a candidate for using our site today, although, for $60 a month, you could hear about things in Florida and surrounding states, and you could use that as a part, but you don't necessarily have to do that. I would be creating an Excel spreadsheet or use a CRM and start identifying who is in charge of technology for towns within 2 hours drive from Tampa, and do an old-fashioned campaign where you just try to identify what their needs are and talk to them about their needs. And let me know what you think of that. Let's talk about that, or if you have follow-up questions.
Yeah, sure.
So follow-up questions or any other thoughts?
No, like no follow-up questions. Like, I mean, my initial thing was like, I mean, I'm very good at like building the products, making sure that the product works, it meets the customer needs and all of that. But when it comes to the marketing and sales, like I'm not an expertise in that particular field. So like when we are trying to reach out to the customers, trying to go talk to them and understand their customer needs, and then like selling the products, like the sales is like where I'm currently lacking. So like any suggestions on like, I mean, is there any particular tool which gives this kind of like information, or like best reach out is like to make cold calls?
I mean, here's a totally different approach. And this is like, I'm making this up as we go along.
Yeah.
If I wanted to identify the technology needs of all of the medium-sized towns near Tampa, I would join a bunch of social media groups, one for each town, right? And I would ask people in the group, hey, what are some of the things that you wish our town could do with technology a little bit better?
Mm-hmm.
And I would use social media groups that are dedicated to each town
Mm-hmm.
to try to get the residents to tell me what do they think their town could do better with technology.
Right.
And then I would use that information to then go to the mayor or go to the commissioners or whoever the administrator would be and say, hey, I'm in this Facebook group. Everybody is saying that the process for paying our utility bill is terrible.
Right.
Would you like to start a conversation about that?
Right.
That's just one idea I would consider.
Got you. Okay. Yeah, definitely. I would do that one. Thanks for that information.
Yeah, so there's no easy solution. I would just, it's old-fashioned identifying what the needs are, and and I think maybe the residents will tell you what the needs are.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
we're just stay with us. At this point, we're just about an hour in. We have 3 people that are in as panelists. It's very easy for me to add a 4th and a 5th, but we're going to be looking for people to raise their hands at this point. I don't see any questions. I don't see any questions in the Q&A tool. I don't see any questions in the chat. So I'm just going to stop there and just see what audience members here would like to join us by raising your hand. And we have Ashish. Let's bring Ashish in. And stay with us for just because there might be something else that you would like to add to this.
Yeah. Sure.
And while we're waiting for Ashish, do you have any fun plans this summer?
Nothing much. Like I was supposed to go to Yellowstone today, but then like the plans got changed because of I'm looking for a new job. So I had some interviews. So the plans got changed.
Well, you'll make it to Yellowstone another time, and I highly recommend it. It's a life-changing experience for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Hi.
So am I pronouncing your name correctly, Ashish?
Yeah, that's correct. It's Ashish. You got that right.
Thank you for joining us. Welcome to MyGovWatch Live. What do you do and where are you joining us from?
Sure. I'm joining from Houston, Texas. I started a new company called Go Cloud IQ. We do more of a migrations for any medium to enterprise client, moving them from wherever they are on-prem to Google Cloud or AWS or any cloud vendor that they're wanting to go to migrate for. So that is kind of like my core service right now. But I mean, there's other services that I'm trying to provide also. So I'm expanding that menu a little bit more. But yeah, I wanted to kind of learn more about MyGovWatch. I did use it for a trial, but I probably didn't know all the right settings or things to click on to get all the right information. So I got like some good information, and some was like, and I don't know what I did wrong or something like that. So I would love to, I'm here because I want to kind of learn from you and others also, like what are the, roadblocks they're running into, and just kind of identify those challenges and see if, there's some things we can do better. Yeah.
Okay. And so how long has your company been in business?
In business for only a month, but past experience 15 years. So yeah.
Okay. Well, the good news is, regardless of federal, state, and local, you're able to use your personal experience, your personal resume, as the experience of your company. I think in the bid process, you may be shut out from time to time where they're saying, you must be in business for 2 years or 3 years, or you must be able to show us a financial statement for, 1 year or 2 years. So that might shut some doors for you, but it will not shut all doors for you because, again, going back to what we talked about earlier with Rajesh, the need for technology solutions in government is nearly unlimited. So some of the same things that I was saying to Rajesh, I would recommend to you as well. But it sounds like that you may be in an area where you have more defined service offerings. So can you go over with me again, like what are some of the more defined services that you offer?
Sure, like managed IT services, like, server monitoring, managing a server for, on a month-to-month SaaS model type of a basis, or migration, which is like a fixed cost we move you from let's just say you're in AWS, we'll move you from AWS into Google Cloud, re-platform all your services into Google Cloud, right? So that is a very common direction for us that we've done.
Yeah. So you're providing services that we see advertised for bid all the time on MyGovWatch. So you're probably a better candidate to use the site because you have a lot of definition around what services you'd like to provide to government. So for example, in Texas, you could do a regional account for $59.99 per month, and you would feel inundated because we see, managed service provider, ITSM, all kinds of things like that are coming up just about every week. So, I think I would recommend you maybe trying the site because, again, it's a 2-week free trial. Because you're participating today, we can make it a month. And in the course of 30 days, you get an idea of like what it's all about, right? And the card is only charged at the end of that 30-day cycle if you decide to keep going with it.
Okay. No, that'd be great. It just like I would just kind of would love to have a little bit more hand holding, I guess, just at the beginning, right? Just it kind of helps to know, hey, this is what you're looking at, this is what it is, kind of it just helps to have that kind of a cohort to go to.
Yeah, we're very big on the onboarding process, and someone else is asking in the question tool here, what makes MyGovWatch different from some of the competitors? And I will say our onboarding process, other than the fact that it's inexpensive and there's no annual contract, those are two big differentiators. It's pay as you go, month to month kind of thing. The onboarding process is second to none because we do phone outreach. So if somebody doesn't want to interact with us, they don't have to. But if they're willing to interact with us, we will spend a lot of time with them dialing in their setup on our site to make sure that everything that they need to see is showing up in their inbox. So that's a big difference between us is the onboarding process and the availability and access that we provide, not just before the sale, but during the adoption process to make sure you're actually seeing what you need to see. So follow-up questions, Ashish?
Follow-up, let me see. Oh yeah, like you had mentioned, like, other bigger companies that you can work under, like there's a program you entered, the Mentor-Protégé Program. How does one, like someone like me, apply to that? Like, can I apply for that so I can work with a protege, then and kind of learn more in that space?
So finding a mentor, are you referring to the Federal Mentor-Protégé Program that I mentioned earlier?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. So finding a mentor there's no list of available mentors if that's what you need.
Oh, okay.
Here's what I would be doing, and here's one way to do it. Like, this is just one way to do it. There's a lot of ways you can do this, but here's one.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you two. SAM.gov is a federal website where you can plug in services or plug in a NAICS code, NAICS code, that are related to your business, and lists of companies will show up that have federal contracts. So you could go into USA Spending and say, well, I'm going to identify the NAICS code for data migration. I'm going to identify the NAICS code for managed service providers. And then I'm going to go to USA Spending, put in that NAICS code, and then see who is in Texas that has federal contracts for that NAICS code. Then what I would do is take that list and go find who you can talk to about the Mentor-Protégé Program. That's one way I would do it. Another way I would do it is I would identify what's called the OSSABU, the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization. That's a federal title that each federal department has. So like the Department of Energy, Department of Education, Defense Department, they all have an OSSABU. Get the OSSABU on the phone. Say, hey, listen, I'd like to do business with this federal agency, with your federal agency, but I really need a mentor. And just like, because that's their job, is helping people like you. If you were me, how would you meet prime contractors that are doing business with your federal agency? And they may tell you about email lists. They may tell you about online events. They may tell you about physical events. And so I would get to know OSTABUs at the federal level in addition to spending time on USAspending.gov.
Can you remind me of the OSTAGO? Like, how do you, what is the Office of what again?
So I'll just say it and then you'll get the acronym.
Okay.
The Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization. And by the way, this recording will be on YouTube, I'd say no later than Monday. And so we're just about 65 minutes into the session. You could just come here and you would hear it.
Thank you. Got it.
On YouTube. So we have like 3 or 4 questions in the question chat. I don't have any other hands raised. We're going to go to the questions in the chat. Ashish, do you have any fun plans coming up this summer?
Yeah, I think maybe going to Vancouver with the wife. We'll see, and the kids.
Vancouver on the U.S. or Canadian side?
Canadian side, yeah.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
there's a mountain range or something. I forgot. Whisper. I think Whisper, Canada.
Well, I've heard it's a beautiful part of Canada, and I know a lot of people go there. It's certainly on my bucket list.
Yeah, I just let my wife do all that stuff, so I stay out of it.
I hear that. I hear that. So we have 2 questions related to MyGovWatch, and then we have actually 3 questions related to MyGovWatch. I'm just going to blast through those again. I don't mind answering questions about the platform. We're trying not to be too promotional on these sessions, but I will answer the questions I see in the chat. I already mentioned that somebody's asking about what makes MyGovWatch different. No annual contract, pay as you go, cancel at any time. We're not asking for a year of fees up front. We just make it really easy to get in, and if you decide it's not for you, to back out of it. So it's just super simple to try and super simple to use. And then the onboarding process, and this is for Parvez and his question, the onboarding process where we spend a lot of time with users to make sure that they're finding what they need on the platform. Cynthia's asking, how granular can you make the search results? Extremely granular. So we're doing things with artificial intelligence and with keywords to make sure that you are seeing, or that only the most relevant things appear at the top of your feed in your lead digest, and at the top of your feed on the site itself. So I would say pretty granular. And so Cynthia, if you're willing to hop on and interact with us live with audio, at least preferably video, that 2-week trial that you see on mygovwatch.com, we can make that 1 month before the card you enter is charged. So if you want to raise your hand, we'll bring you on and talk about it. Then Bobby Sue is asking, she's using a few other vendors today. Does MyGovWatch cover more than these 3 do? My job is to find work for customer care services for utilities. We offer call center and other services, and I see those other services. So Bobby Sue, we actually have what's called a premium market experience for some of what you do. We have 205 industries. Some of them, we have an elevated product, and call center happens to be one of them, customer care call center, where we are closing the loop on every single contract by getting the results of every single RFP, so that you can see who's winning all of these contracts, see their proposals, see the prices of every vendor, and there's even a lookup that lets you see which bids are coming out in the next year or 2, so you can pre-sell and get ahead of those sales, and also a pricing lookup tool so you can see the pricing of your competitors historically by competitor in different parts of the country. So I would say, particularly because you're in an area where we have a premium market, Bobby Sue, we should talk, and feel free to drop me a line. I'm going to put my email address in the chat as we're sort of going through this. So let me do that now. And then Stephen, we're gonna get to you as soon as I do this. Just put my name in or put my email in the chat. So we'll send that to everyone. And so anybody who would like to be in contact with me with additional questions about MyGovWatch can do that. And so Stephen asks, what are some good strategies to create relationships with contracting officers that work on military bases? Great question, Stephen. So in order to create the relationships that you're seeking with contracting officers that work on military bases, you first have to identify who are those people, right? And the good news is that there are public data sources out there where you can sort of get at that information. The bad news is that it's not super straightforward or super easy. So there are two systems, USAspending.gov and the FPDS, Federal Procurement Data System. I would be looking at using those two data sources to first identify. There are numerical codes associated with locations and purchasing locations in the federal government. I would be looking to use those systems to identify the codes associated with the installations that you would like to do business with. And then I would be using those codes to cross-reference purchases that are happening related to those codes. And then by using both of those systems, you should be able to generate a list of people with names and phone numbers associated with those location codes. We do have relationships with consultants who can help you with this kind of thing. It's certainly not something where you would necessarily need a consultant. However, there is a significant learning curve associated with these federal data systems because they're just not very super easy to use. So if you would like to reach out to me, I can certainly put you in touch with folks who can help you with that. So let's just see what other questions have come up here in the chat. Looks like we've answered that one. So I'm going to just go through and click done on a few of these. Okay. We have 4 people in the panel. At this point, I'm just going to say to the folks who are in the panel, if you have a question, and Julian, I see you're not on mute. Do you have any follow-up questions, Julian?
No, I think I was just I forgot to mute it. But
Okay.
I like to mention about the USA spending.gov, and yeah, I wonder if do you think I could outsource something there that with my qualification at this time, like, you know, with the completed project of like about 50,000 per project, do you think I could outsource anything there?
I think that, as a matter of fact, I'm sure that there are plans in place where they're going to be sunsetting the federal procurement data system. And I think that they have very large technical vendors already in place for some of those data projects.
Also, like
however,
maybe?
Yeah. However, my experience is that if you go to USA Spending, if I'm not mistaken, the folks who run that site for the federal government, you can see on the site who does that. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing like reaching out for a cold call and saying, hey, you know, can I be a part of your team and help you with some of your needs related to this? And I wouldn't be surprised if they're receptive to that, because my understanding is that the folks who run that website are fairly accessible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll follow that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't do this often, but we're at about an hour and 15 minutes, and we tend to go to an hour and a half, but when questions seem to run out, we do allow these sessions to sort of, you know, finish and conclude in an organic way. So going once, going twice. Anyone who wants to raise a hand should do it now. Otherwise, we're going to wrap it up. Okay, folks, that will do it for today's edition of MyGovWatch Live. Remember, if you're not already a subscriber, start your free 14-day trial at MyGovWatch.com today also. If you want to win more government contracts for less, you'll be glad you did. Thanks, folks, and enjoy the rest of your day and have a great summer.